We have IIT Roorkee here, and their team members are Ahmed Rocky Sekia, Vivas Talukdar, Chirag Sridhar, and Kunal Sharma. Team IIT Madras, Ayman Akhtar, Neharika Balasubramanian, Snehadeep Gayen, and Yeshwant Narayana. Team ISR Kolkata with Shayan Datta, Soham Gupta, Shaureen Chatterjee, and Shubhajit Chakraborty. And finally, Team ISC Bangalore with Anmol, Anurag Chitawar, Krishna S. Bharadwaj, and Srinab Agrawal. So good afternoon, almost evening, but your wait is going to be worth it. Good afternoon and welcome to the final day of Mimamsa Mains 2022. We have a fully packed day, ready to keep you too excited to need that extra cup of afternoon coffee. This is the rapid fire, the last quizzing event of Mimamsa Mains 2022, and probably the most thrilling, as some might argue. Jokes apart, I hope that you've all had a filling meal and have braced yourself because the rapid fire is going to take active participation from all of you, finalists and spectators alike. So this is the A round of rapid fire, and the general instructions are as follows. The rapid fire will consist of 4 rounds, and there'll be 4 direct questions per round. The teams get to choose the subject for each direct question, but one subject can be chosen only once in the entire rapid fire. Round A. Correct answer to a direct question will give you 2 points, but in the case the team answers incorrectly, the question will be passed on to the rest of the teams, and if they give the correct answer, they'll get 1 point. And if no one gives the correct answer, the question will be passed on to the audience and you will get to answer the question. There are prizes as well, so stay alert. In case the question is incorrect, the QMCs will give the correct answer, and if the answer is correct, the QMCs will tell their verdict and explain the answer. The thinking time after each question is 45 seconds. There's a timer that's going to be on the slides. There'll be no thinking for the past questions. If a question gets passed, you need to answer immediately. And if all the teams fail to answer, the question will be passed on to the audience. Cross-questioning the answers provided by the QMCs is not allowed. There will be a discussion session after the end of the rapid fire, so you can keep your queries reserved until then, but no cross-questioning will be allowed here. All right, so with that, I think we can start the rapid fire round. To elaborate more on that, the thinking time is 45 seconds, after which you can give your answer in a few sentences. But 45 seconds is not when you have to answer the question as well. All right, so we move on to the first question, and the order in the first round is going to be alphabetical, and then we'll start from the second team and then the third team in each consecutive rounds. So the first question goes to IISc Bangalore. Which subject do you want the question to be from? So the first question from physics. A beaker is filled with ice and a thermometer is inserted in it. Now, almost freezing water is poured into the beaker. Explain how the reading of the thermometer changes with time, and your timer starts now. You have only 15 seconds. 5 seconds. Your answer?
The freezing water starts to freeze, taking the heat from ice. If the amount of ice is too much, then all the water will freeze and then the temperature would go down. If the amount of water is more, then all the ice would reach 0 degree, and we would have a mixture of ice and water at 0 degree Celsius.
That's incorrect. That's not the correct thing.
The question now gets passed on to Team ICER Kolkata.
Initially, when almost freezing water is put into the beaker, then the temperature will rise from 0 degrees Celsius a bit, but then they will reach thermal equilibrium. So if we pour a lot of freezing water, then they will recrystallize into ice, and the temperature will, after rising, will again fall to 0 degrees Celsius.
That's correct.
So Team ICER Kolkata gets the correct answer.
So as they said, like first because you're putting water into it, the temperature will rise. But eventually, because melting is a endothermic reaction, the temperature of the water will drop.
Okay, so the second direct question of round 1 of round A of rapid fire goes to ICER Kolkata. Which subject do you want your question to be from? So the second question of physics is, the wheels of a train are shaped like truncated cones. Should the circular face with the smaller radius face inwards or outwards? Your time starts now. Fifteen seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So in one of the cases, the smaller radius would be on the outside. In another of the cases, the smaller radius would be on the inside, so that both of them get the same torque. Otherwise, they just try to. We just mean that if one of the wheels has smaller radius on the interior, then in the other wheel, the smaller radius should be on the exterior.
So the QMC's verdict is the answer is incorrect. The question gets passed on to Team IIT Madras.
So the smaller radius should be towards the inside.
Another incorrect answer. IIT Roorkee.
The smaller radius would towards be outside so that it can turn easily, like for so that it can turn, means take turns.
Yeah, that's correct.
IIT Roorkee gets the correct answer for the second direct question.
So essentially, what happens is that when you have trains on the track, there will be various different perturbations. So which is why it will experience certain torques. If the smaller radius circle is outside, then that will counterbalance that. So it will be stable.
So now the third direct question of round 1 of rapid fire A goes to Team IIT Madras. What subject do you want your question to be from? So the first question from chemistry is, when a ferrofluid is being prepared, after the magnetite nanoparticles are synthesized, the very next step is to add ammonium oleate. What's the purpose of this step? The oleated coated particles are suspended in a non-polar solvent. Your timer starts now. Fifteen seconds.
The ammonium oleate coats the ferrofluid particles, making it act like a micelle, allowing it to form a colloid in the nonpolar solvent, allowing it to be stable in the colloid.
Just one clarification, what kind of micelle is it?
With the ammonium part facing towards the ferrofluid particles and the oleate part facing outwards.
Yes, that's
So, yeah.
So in this case, a reverse micelle forms because it's a non-polar solvent. The head group points towards the um, ferrofluid particles so that they prevent the coagulation of the iron particles.
IIT Madras got their direct question correct. Now the fourth direct question of round 1 goes to Team IIT Roorkee. Which subject do you want your question to be from? So the first direct question from biology is, what happens when you put an animal cell in a concentrated solution of urea? Explain the molecular interactions, and your timer starts now. Ten seconds. 3, 2, 1.
The animal cells should swell because of osmosis.
That's incorrect.
So the question now gets passed on to Team ISC Bangalore.
Yeah, the cell shrinks up because the solution outside has greater osmolarity than the solution inside, so the water goes out.
Right, that's incorrect.
The question now gets passed on to Team ISR Kolkata. The question is being passed on directly to Team IIT Madras.
The urea solution on entering the cell disrupts the tertiary structure of the proteins by breaking the hydrogen interactions.
That's incorrect.
So the question now gets passed on to the audience. Anyone who wants to answer this question, you can raise your hands. What happens when you put an animal cell in a concentrated solution of urea? Explain the molecular interactions. We've got one person to answer.
I suppose because of urea, the membrane proteins would get denatured and hence the cell would rupture.
Incorrect.
Hello. Yeah, I think it's because the integrity of the cell membrane lipids also is lost. Because of that, hydrophobic effect is lost, so that the lipid structure is lost here.
Yes, that's the correct answer. Right.
So you've got one correct answer from the audience.
So essentially what ends up happening is so essentially what happens that the cell membrane disintegrates because the urea present outside competitively binds with the hydrogen bonds formed already in the water, which are integral to maintain the cell membrane structure, and because of that the cell membrane disintegrates and the cell just dissolves.
Okay, so with that, I think the first round of Rapid Fire A is completed. The scoreboard is as follows. ISC Bangalore with 0 points, ISR Kolkata with 1 point, IIT Madras with 2 points, and IIT Roorkee with 1 point. We now start with the second round of Rapid Fire A, and the first question will now go to Team ISR Kolkata. Which subject do you want your question to be from? Maths. So the first question from maths is, consider an n-sided polygon for n greater than 4 in the plane with vertices having integer coordinates. Show that there exists a pair of vertices with midpoint also having integer coordinates. You've got 30 seconds. Ten seconds. What's your answer?
So integer coordinates can either take odd, 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 even, odd, odd, even. So if there are 5, then there will be 2 with the same parities in both the coordinates. So when we just sum them and divide them by 2, the midpoint is also an integer coordinate.
Yes, that is the correct answer. So as they said, the midpoint of two vertices has integer coordinates if and only if they have the same parity. And there are 4 options: even, even, odd, odd, even, and odd, odd. So by the pigeonhole principle, 2 of them must have the same like the parity. And that way, the midpoint is also an integer lattice point.
So ISR Kolkata got their answer correct. Now we move on to the second direct question of round 2. Team IIT Madras, which subject do you want your question to be from? So the third question from physics is, a magnet is placed inside a small bismuth box in vacuum. It is noticed that A, the magnet levitates. B, on spinning the magnet, while it's levitating, it comes to a halt very slowly. Explain these observations. Your timer starts now. Twenty seconds. Your time is up.
So since the bismuth is diamagnetic, the magnet levitates, and on spinning, there will be change in magnetic flux, which causes eddy currents in it. And from Lenz's law, there is a drag. There is an opposite drag, viscous drag, so it will slow down.
That's the correct answer.
Okay.
Yeah, so as they said, basically bismuth is diamagnetic, why it levitates, because the magnet is repelled from the metal. And when it rotates, there will be eddy current generated, because of which it slows down.
So Team IIT Madras got their answer correct. The third direct question of round 2 of Rapid Fire A goes to Team IIT Roorkee with subject. So the fourth question from physics is, water is being boiled in a very long beaker. You observe that bubbles rise from the bottom, but they never reach the surface. During this process, a lot of buzzing and popping sounds can be heard. Explain these observations. Your timer starts now. Fifteen seconds. Three, two, one.
As the bubble goes to the surface, because of high surface tension, the bubble gets rupture at the before coming out of the surface. It gets rupture, and because of that rupture, sound of the popping sound evolved.
That's incorrect.
The question now gets passed on to Team ISC Bangalore.
Okay, so as the bubble goes up, the pressure decreases, so its volume increases. So at a point, the pressure inside is going to break the surface tension force, keeping it in that form, and the loss in energy is converted to sound, due to which buzzing and popping sounds are heard.
I think that's incorrect.
The question gets passed on to Team ICER Kolkata.
So it's an isothermal process, and hence following Boyle's law, the volume of the bubble increases. So like there's an inside pressure, there's an outside pressure. So when the two pressures should be equal to the 40 by R. So when the surface tension is broken, then the bubble ruptures.
It's incorrect.
The question gets passed on to Team IIT Madras.
As the beaker is very long, the bubbles tend to stick to the side of the vessel as opposed to reaching the top. And the buzzing and popping sounds can be explained by bumping during the process.
So this is the second audience question. The question gets passed on to the audience. There's one person there.
Since the beaker is very long, the top of the water at the top has not yet had time to warm up to the boiling point, and hence when the bubbles of steam rise to the top, the bubbles condense, and the loss in pressure causes the bubbles to collapse, hence causing sound.
That's correct.
So the QMC will explain the answer.
So as the person in the audience said, you have bubbles forming at the bottom of the vessel because of there will be irregularities at the bottom, and because the temperature is high, and those form nucleation sites. You'll have bubbles forming there, and they will rise up. However, the water hasn't uniformly heated up, so there will be colder water on top, and there it will condense, and that will rupture the bubble.
Okay, now the question is from Team ISC Bangalore, the direct question. And they've chosen chemistry as the subject. It is observed that the boiling point of oxygen is greater than that of nitrogen or fluorine. Explain why. Fifteen seconds. Three, two, one. What's your answer?
Like it's greater than N2 due to higher molecular weight, and it's greater than F2 as well due to interelectronic repulsions in F2.
That's incorrect.
The question gets passed on to Team ICER Kolkata.
Okay. So the boiling point of oxygen is greater than nitrogen because in the oxygen the pi-pi interactions is greater. So that's greater electromagnetic interaction. And in the case of fluorine, the electronegativity of fluorine is so high that fluorine-fluorine van der Waals interactions have a lot of repulsion, and so they are easier to boil than oxygen.
That's incorrect.
The question now gets passed on to Team IIT Madras.
O2 is paramagnetic unlike N2 and F2. So due to
like magnetic field, it can have energy in magnetism also. So
that's incorrect.
The question gets passed on to Team IIT Roorkee.
Because due to higher van der Waals interaction in O2, the O2 has a higher boiling point than N2 or F2, and
like if you consider a higher surface area of O2, but in case of FF there is a repulsion, so O2 has a higher boiling point.
That's incorrect.
Another question for the audience. Any takers? We've got one person answering the question.
Oxygen has unpaired electrons in its highest orbital, and because of the interactions between these unpaired electrons, there are during the collisions they stay together for longer, because of which the interactions are greater in O2. That's why the boiling point is greater.
Well, that's correct.
That was the correct answer.
Uh,
Here's the explanation of it.
So in oxygen, the molecules of O2 have half-filled pi orbitals, because of which when two oxygen molecules collide in the they stick together for a transient period of time that causes them to stay together for slightly longer, which increases the boiling point. Such a phenomenon is known as sticky collision.
Okay, with that, the round 2 of rapid fire A is also complete. The scoreboard is as follows. ISC Bangalore at 0 points, ISR Kolkata at 3 points, IIT Madras leading currently with 4 points, and IIT Roorkee with 1 point. Now we start round 3 of rapid fire A. The first question goes to team IIT Madras. Which subject do you want your question to be from? So the second question from biology. Females rarely exhibit red-green color blindness due to its X-linked recessive nature, but they can be carriers. When a narrow beam of red-green light is incident on different parts of a carrier's retina, they can differentiate in some regions and not otherwise. Why is this? Your timer starts now. Ten seconds. Team Madras, what's your answer?
During embryo development in progenitor cells, one X chromosome is always turned off and turned into a bar body. When the descendants of those cells are present, they will exhibit only the characters of the one X chromosome not turned into a bar body.
Yes, that's correct.
Here's the explanation.
Right, so it's essentially bar bodies and silencing of the X chromosome. So the regions where the carrier chromosome, which has the gene for red-green color blindness, is not silenced, that part of the retina is going to exhibit color blindness, whereas the other part will remain fine.
So the second direct question of round 3 of rapid fire A goes to team IIT Roorkee, and they've chosen chemistry as their subject. So the question is, although both are hydride donors, LiLH4 is a very strong reducing agent. That is, H here acts as a nucleophile only, but NaH is a very strong base. Why? Your timer starts now. Twenty seconds. Last 5 seconds. Team Roorkee, what's your answer?
LiAlH4 has a 3p1s bond, covalent bond, which is very weak and thus acts as reducing agent. But in NaH,
It has an ionic bond. It has an ionic bond, and hence it reacts vigorously as a base.
And H is having high electron density. That's why it acts as a very strong base. Because for H, it is very hard to hold 2 electrons.
That's incorrect.
The question now gets passed on to team IISc Bangalore.
So for NaH, it would break in an ionic fashion to give H minus, therefore acts as a strong base. Whereas for LiLH4, the whole compound is like it has H minus acts as a hydride donor for the Al atom, like a coordinate bonds. It won't act as a base, whereas it acts as a reducing agent.
That's incorrect.
The question now gets passed on to Team ICER Kolkata.
The lithium aluminum hydride, there are aluminum hydrogen bonds which are covalent in nature, and that's why they act as strong reducing agents. But here NaH exists, Na plus and H minus, and H minus upon abstraction of a proton, acidic proton, the reaction gets derived as hydrogen is formed as a stable product.
That's incorrect.
The question gets passed on to the last team, Team IIT Madras.
ALH4 minus is significantly larger, and sterically it's harder for it to be a base, while H minus is really small and can be a strong base as opposed to a reducing agent.
That's incorrect.
Another audience question. There's a taker there.
Yeah. So in case of NaH, when will lose one hydrogen, it will become Na plus, which is a strong conjugate, a stable conjugate acid. So that's why it is a strong base. And in case of LiLH4, when it will lose all the H4 ions, it will become conjugate, a very stable conjugate acid. In that case, we can say that Na plus is a very strong base. I hope I'm clear.
That's incorrect.
Any other person who wants to answer this question? Any takers? You'll get a prize. There's a chocolate for you all. Nope. There is Goraksh.
Hello. Okay. So LiLH4, the Li is very small and ALH4 is a pretty big anion. So it will have partial covalent characteristics. Whereas in case of NaH, it has similar sizes, so it can ionize easily. Whereas for reducing agent, we can say that Al has got empty d orbitals for it to accept a few electrons.
That's incorrect.
Anyone else wants to answer this question? Nope. I think you should take the stage, Daksh.
Okay, so lithium aluminum hydride is a covalent hydride and it has ALH sigma bonds. So for any moiety to act as a nucleophile, it needs to be directional. A sigma bond is directional, but when it's sodium hydride, it is H minus, which is a 1s orbital, which is not directional. So it cannot act as a nucleophile, but only as a base.
So now the direct question goes to IISc. And they've taken biology as the subject. The question is, this question has been done. No. The third question is, a mutation in a person's skeletal muscles in a decrease in binding of myosin heads to actin by 50%. What do you expect in the peak tension produced and the rate of contraction in these muscles compared to those in skeletal muscles, that is one where all myosin heads can bind to actin, and your timer starts now. Ten seconds.
The rate of contraction remains the same, peak tension produced decreases.
That's incorrect.
The question gets passed on to team IIT ISR Kolkata.
I think the peak tension will increase due to this, and the rate of the construction will remain the same.
Incorrect.
The question gets passed on to team IIT Madras.
Rate of contraction is depending on other factors. So peak tension would reduce by over 50%, and rate of contraction would remain similar.
That's incorrect.
The question gets passed on to team IIT Roorkee.
I think the peak tension would decrease as the binding sites have decreased in a sense, and also the rate of contraction, I think it would decrease.
That's incorrect.
The question now gets passed on to the audience. Any takers? Anyone wants to answer this question?
Hello. I think the tension will remain the same, but the rate will be slower.
Can you elaborate a little?
I'm not sure. I'm not too sure.
Incorrect. That's incorrect.
Anyone else wants to answer this question?
I think the peak tension will be like half, but the rate of contraction will be half, but the peak tension will be twice.
That's incorrect.
We can have one more person answer this question before letting the QMCs answer it. If anyone wants to take a chance. Nope. Yeah.
Right, okay. So essentially, the second audience member, the answer was correct, but there was no explanation for it, so can't really give him points for that. So the total contraction depends on the distance traveled or the amount of overlap between the actin and myosin filaments. And if you reach complete overlap, then the peak tension is going to remain the same. You will just take more time in reaching that overlap because 50% of the myosin sites are unable to bind. So you are going to take a longer time to reach complete overlap from partial overlap.
So now the last direct question of round 3 to team ISR Kolkata. Which subject you want? So the question from chemistry. When trans-stilbene is irradiated with a light of 334 nanometer wavelength, it gets converted into cis-stilbene. However, repeating the same with cis-stilbene does not cause any change. Why? And your timer starts now. Ten seconds. What's your answer?
In the trans-stilbene case, while we shine the light, there can be formation of radicals, and rotation around the single bond causes it to transform into cis. But in case of the cis-stilbene, I mean, there can be one cyclization in the middle part, which can affect the transformation from the cis-stilbene to the trans-stilbene.
That's incorrect.
The question gets passed on to team IIT Madras.
It might be due to molecular orbitals, like does not support the overlap of molecular orbitals from cis to trans.
That's incorrect.
The question gets passed on to team IIT Roorkee.
After radiating it with light, there will be formation of radicals, and after this reaction, the formed product has minimum potential energy And I think like these benzene rings are like in the most is like invert the plane. It's like this. So
Could you elaborate?
Like one is out of plane, like, or like they they are forming a ring like through the hydrogen, that is like an aromatic ring in between.
That's incorrect.
The question gets passed on to team IISc.
So I think the molecular orbitals, the p orbitals precisely, are not in the correct position, the correct phase orientation in the trans. But what is the compound? Still being. Yeah.
What?
They're in the correct orientation in the case of the cis steel beans to form an extended delocalization, while in the trans steel bean they're out of phase, they're 180 degrees flipped out. So yeah, the trans to cis steel bean conversion is favorable because again there's an increase in delocalization. So it's going to a more stable state, so it is a spontaneous process, while the latter obviously won't be.
That's correct. That's correct.
Here's the explanation of the of the question.
So in trans steel bean there is extended conjugation because the whole system is planar, but in cis steel bean it's not because of steric bulk that flips, that makes the ring 90-degree out of plane. So that particular wavelength can only make radicals for that double bond which is in conjugation, but which is not in conjugation, that wavelength is not correct energy for that.
With that, 3 rounds of rapid fire array have been completed, and the scoreboard is with IIT Madras in lead with 6 points, ISER Kolkata with 3 points, and then IC Bangalore and IIT Roorkee with 1 point each. We now begin with the 4th round of rapid fire A, and the first question goes to team IIT Roorkee. Which subject do you want? So they want a question from mathematics, and their question is, assign each point in the 3D space one of 3 colors, red, green, or blue. Show that for all, you can find a line segment of length A with n points of same color in space. And your timer starts now. Fifteen seconds. And your time is up. What's your answer?
like if I take a point and I just imagine like there is a cube around that point, then at each point I can keep a same color a same color as that the point which is in the middle of the cube, and I can also not means I can take different colors at the at each corner of the cube, and I can take same color at each point of the cube. And there will be definitely a possibility like when I connect these point, they will have starting and ending point with same color. Like,
I don't think that's correct.
Consider a tetrahedron with side length A. Since it has 4 vertices, 2 of the vertices must be of the same color, and that side length is A.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so the solution we came up with was the same, that construct a regular tetrahedron, and since it has 4 vertices and you have 3 colors, you must have an edge with same colors as endpoints.
So IC Bangalore got the correct answer. The second question of round 4 goes to IC Bangalore. Which subject do you want your question to be from? Maths. A number is called superdivisible if it is divisible by all non-zero sums of subsets of its digits. Show that infinitely many of them are not divisible by 10. Okay, your time is up. The question has been passed on to Team ICER Kolkata.
A number is super divisible if it is divisible by all non-zero sums of the subset of its digits. So if we take the sequence 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on, and after we reach 9 we again repeat from 1, that is not divisible by all the subsets of its digits, and none of these are divisible.
That's not correct.
No, the question moves on to Team IT Madras.
Maybe we could take the number, add some, say the number has n digits, add n zeros after it, and then repeat the number itself.
Elaborate a bit more.
Sorry?
Can you elaborate?
Say some subset is dividing the original number. So it would divide that number. That number would be the original number into 1, 0, 0, 0, and then a 1 at the end. So 1 at the starting, 1 at the end, and 2n, 3n minus 2 zeros in between. So it would divide that number itself. So like n digits, n zeros, then n digits, the same number.
How do you ensure divisibility by
like that is the original number multiplied by 1, then followed by 3n minus 2 zeros, and then 1 at the end. Because the same number multiplied by.
I don't think that's correct.
The question gets passed on to Team IT Roorkee.
Like I take a random number, any random number, and I just write this in terms of 10 factor, like units place plus 10 times the tens place and 100 times like this. And at unit place, if I take it as 0, and all the other rest like a into 10 raised to power k plus b into 10 raised to power k minus 1, like this from the left hand side, I can take actually infinite variation at a, b, c, d, and by considering that a plus b plus c have a sum of 10.
So what does your number look like? Can you just repeat, like in the digits, not the 10 powers?
Okay. Like I take 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, and 0, and no, not 0. What I do, I just write like this, like 5 into 1 plus 6 into 10 plus 7 into 100, and like I have to think for an example actually.
That's not correct.
No, the question now gets no. The question gets passed on to the audience. Anyone who has the correct answer? We've got one taker.
Take any super divisible number, consider 12. 12 is super divisible, of course. Add zeros in between, 102, 1002. Consider the sequence. You have an infinite sequence of numbers, all of us are super divisible and not divisible by 10.
Yeah, that's correct. You made the question.
So we go on to the third direct question, and the question is directed towards Isa. And the question is directed towards ISER Kolkata, and the subject is biology. A scientist isolated mRNA from a prokaryote and a eukaryotic organism. They are then hybridized with the genes from which it is transcribed. In one of the mRNA DNA hybrids, many loops are observed, but not in the other one. Which one is prokaryotic one and why? Your timer starts now. Fifteen seconds. What's your answer, Team ISER Kolkata?
Yeah, so eukaryotic DNA has many origin of replications, but as we know, prokaryotic has only one origin of replication. So like if we just take a mRNA, so for the eukaryotic case, we will see that many loops are observed, but in the prokaryotic case, it will form loop at one place.
That's incorrect.
The question gets passed on to Team IT Madras.
Eukaryotic mRNA is spliced, which means that the loops will be observed only in eukaryotic mRNA DNA hybrid, but not in the prokaryotic one.
That's correct. Right, so essentially the answer is that eukaryotic DNA has introns as well as exons, but prokaryotic DNA does not have introns at all, so that's why.
Okay, so the answer was given by Team IT Madras. And the last direct question of round 4 of rapid fire, the last question of rapid fire A, directed towards IT Madras. Which subject? Maths. N houses, each inhabited by one person, are arranged in a circle, and in one move, a pair moves such that one goes to the immediately next house clockwise, and the other goes to the immediately next house counterclockwise. When can all people gather in a single house? And your timer starts now. Five seconds. Your time is up.
So in the first move, two people go to the beside house, and in next two moves, the two like in the in the next two moves, four people goes to the next house. So like 1 plus 2 plus till step n by 2. That's it. Like yeah, step n by 2 plus 1 into step n by 2 by 2.
So what is the final condition?
Condition?
So you're asked when can all n people gather in a single house?
When step n by 2 is odd.
Sorry?
When step of n by 2 is odd.
Can you elaborate?
Like step means greatest integer function. So and when will it be odd? If n by 2 is odd, then
Can you give a condition on n? Okay.
Since the time is over, the question gets passed on to team IIT Roorkee, which have passed the question on to team IIC Bangalore.
I think n should be odd. Because when n is even, you can label alternate house numbers, and then you would get the difference between them as always an even number, and you cannot finally reach a stage where all the people would gather in one house, whereas in odd it's trivial, you just take one and symmetrically move all the people to that house.
Yeah, that is correct.
So with that, explain the answer. Yeah.
So you can also consider this. So in every move, the position, like you number the positions, and in every move, one position increases by one, and other decreases by one. So you can consider the sum of their positions, and that sum will remain invariant mod n. So since the initial sum was n plus 1 by 2, and when they get into one house, let's say house k, nk must be congruent to 0 mod n. So this happens only when n is odd.
So with that, we have concluded rapid fire round A, and the scoreboard reads with IIT Madras in lead with 7 points, ISR Kolkata and ISC Bangalore at the second position with 3 points each, and then IIT Roorkee with 1 point. And to introduce our QMCs, we have Naman Pratap, Amog Rakesh, Amog Ranade, and Daksh Telang. And before we start with rapid fire round B, we take a break of 5 minutes, and then we'll start with rapid fire round B. And here is a set of instructions for round B. Okay, wait. So here is a general set of instructions for rapid fire round B. So once the question appears on the screen, I will read the question out, and then you'll get a 30 seconds time for buzzing. You cannot press the buzzer before I end reading the question. In this round, no questions will be passed on, either to other teams or the audience. And the wrong answer, if a team gives the wrong answer, one team member will have to go and join the audience. And same as before, cross-questioning the answers provided by the QMCs is not allowed during the round. Afterwards, we will have a discussion session set up where all the queries can be addressed. So just to get you all familiar with the buzzing, I will have a Okay, so before starting the round, we'll have a trial run of the buzzers. When I say go, press the buzzer. In 3, 2, 1, go. See? There's an option where I go to the sequence, and the first team to press the buzzer was team 1. The second team was team 3. The third team was team 2. And the last team was team 4. ISC Bangalore is team 1. ISR Kolkata is team 2. IIT Madras is team 3. And IIT Roorkee is team 4. And with that, I think we can begin rapid fire round B. Just a reminder that after I read the question is when you are allowed to press the buzzers. So the first question of round 1 is, why do protozoan parasites cause acute diseases as compared to nematodes that cause chronic diseases? And your buzzing time starts now. The buzzer has been pressed by only team 1, ISC Bangalore. What's your answer?
Nematodes form cysts, and cysts that help them evade immune responses, so they can stay in the body for longer, thus cause chronic diseases. Every time the immune system is weakened, they can come out and again cause the disease symptoms. So yeah.
Right. That's the correct answer. So essentially, if you compare the life cycles of nematodes, it's much larger than protozoan parasites, and therefore they are more likely to cause chronic diseases as compared to protozoan parasites.
Okay, now the second question of round 1 of rapid fire B. If you pour a handful of salt into a glass of water, the water level will go down. Why? Your timer starts now. You have 15 seconds. You have 17 seconds left.
Success.
3, 2, 1. Only team 3 has pressed the buzzer. What's your answer?
So salt has ions in it. So because of the ionic attractions, the water forms, comes together, the water molecules come together, and the water level goes down.
That's correct.
So the explanation is?
The presence of excess ions in water causes solvation around the ions, and that is why the volume decreases. This is a classic example of negative deviation from Raoult's law.
Okay, with that we go on to the third question of round 1. A number is said to be sparse if its binary expansion contains no consecutive ones. How many numbers are sparse in the set 1, 2, 3, and so on till 2 to the power k? Your timer starts now. You've got 15 seconds. No team has buzzed until now. We've got one team to buzz, and the buzzer has been pressed by Team ISC Bangalore.
Since the number belongs to the set 1 raised to 1 to 2 raised to power k, it has k digits. We consider an inclusion exclusion principle. We first count all the numbers that are possible 2 raised to k, and then exclude out the numbers having the block k minus 1 once, and we can write the expansion to calculate this expression.
So what's the final number?
2 raised to k minus, it has Pascal coefficients in front, and then power of 2 keeps decreasing. Just a second, k, c1. I would give you the written expression.
That's not correct. Sorry.
So now one member of Team ISC Bangalore will come and join the audience because the answer was incorrect. And the correct explanation is?
So we can consider the set from 0 to 2 to the k minus 1, since both 0 and 2 to the k are sparse. And then you can consider a recursive argument, and you finally get a recursion which is the same as the Fibonacci recursion. And it's shifted by 2 units. So you get the number of sparse numbers less than or equal to 2 to the k minus 1 as f of k plus 2. So the k plus 2th Fibonacci number.
Okay, with that we go to the last question of round 1 of Rapid Fire B. And the question is, can that be transverse sound waves? Justify. Your timer starts now. Team 3, Team IIT Madras has buzzed. What's your answer?
So there can be a transfer sound waves because if molecules have interactions between them, right? So if one molecule goes up, then it pulls out the other molecules, and there can be wave formed.
Could you give an example?
Like some like viscous, like some viscous thing, very heavy gas. Like some like wait.
I would consider that to be incorrect. It's partially correct. So it's incorrect. So the thing is, you can have transverse sound waves even in bulk. You don't need to consider molecules. You need some sort of a restoring force in the perpendicular direction, and you see these kind of things in, say, solids. Solids has transverse and longitudinal sound waves.
So since Team IIT Madras gave a wrong answer, one member of their team will go and join the audience. And with that, we conclude round 1 of Rapid Fire B. The scoreboard reads IIT Madras at 9 points. No, IIT Madras with 2 points in round B, and ISC Bangalore with 2 points, and IIT Roorkee and ISR Kolkata with 0 points. Before we start with round 2, I'd like to tell the audience that we have esteemed distinguished guests from Praj Industries amongst us. So can we please have a huge round of applause for them? We now start with round 2 of Rapid Fire B. And the question is, what is the advantage of having stress hormone like adrenaline be peptides and not lipids? I'm resetting the buzzer, so the buzzer has been pressed by team IISc Bangalore very enthusiastically.
Okay, so stress responses are acute responses. You have to respond in the moment very fast. So peptide hormones and lipid hormones are have a slower onset but stay for longer. So they are for longer term responses. Short term and fast throughput responses, peptide hormones are better. That is why they are peptide hormones.
Right, that is correct. So essentially, peptide hormones can undergo signal amplification through secondary messengers and therefore have shorter response times, whereas lipid hormones work over an extended period of time.
So we now move on to the second question of rapid fire round B. In the metallocarbene displayed below, find the oxidation state of the central ruthenium metal atom. Additionally, find the bond order of the CN bonds at position A, and your timer starts now. The buzzer has been reset. "15 seconds and no team has buzzed yet. So all the teams have chosen to pass on this question, and the answer will be given by the QMC.
So the oxidation state is +3 and the CN bond order is 1.5. It's +3 because there are two chloride ions and another was the NHC.
So now we move on to the third question of round 2 of the rapid fire B, and the question is, what is the expected distance between pairs of points on the interval 0 to L, where each point is uniformly sampled? And your timer starts now. "15 seconds and no buzzers yet. I think all the teams are going to pass this question as well. The QMC, can you please answer this question?
Yeah, so consider x and y, they're uniformly picked from 0 to L. So they divide the interval into 3 parts, call them A, B, and C, and their sum has to be L. And since they're exchangeable, the expected values of A, B, and C are equal, and their sum is L, so each of the expected value must be equal to L by 3.
Now we move on to the last question of round 2, and the question is, consider two cases. 1, a boxer shadow boxes for an hour. 2, a boxer trains with a punching bag for an hour. In which case would the boxer get more tired and why? And your timer starts now. Team 4 has pressed the buzzer. Team IT Roorkee, what's your answer?
The boxer will get more tired in the second case, as there will be energy loss in the second case.
That's incorrect.
So the question was incorrect, and the QMC will give the answer.
So contrary to that, actually, in the second case, there will be a punching bag, which will provide the deceleration. In the first case, the boxer himself would have to pull the punches. The boxer themselves would have to pull the punches. So that's why they will get tired more easily.
And now, since the answer was incorrect, one member of Team IT Roorkee will come and join the audience. With that, round 2 of Rapid Fire B has been completed, and the scoreboard is, in round B, IIT Madras scored 2 points and IC Bangalore scored 4 points. And one member of each team but ISR Kolkata has joined the audience. Now we start with round 3 of Rapid Fire B, and the first question is, it is observed that vaccinated individuals sometimes test negative for COVID antibodies. Why? And your timer starts now. Fifteen seconds. Our no team's gonna buzz again. Well, the question gets passed on to the QMC. What's the answer?
Right, okay. So essentially in terms of, so whenever you prepare vaccines, you might have antibodies formed for a specific part of the virus like the spike protein. But when you're testing for antibodies, if you don't end up testing for the spike protein antibody, your test is going to show that you are negative for COVID antibodies.
So with that, we move on to the second question of round 3 of rapid fire B. And the question is, we know that the wave function for the electron in the H atom and the He plus ion is given by psi is equal to C e to the power minus A1r and psi is equal to C e to the power minus A2r, where r is the radial distance between alpha 1 and alpha 2, and which one is greater and why? And your timer starts now. So the buzzer has been pressed by team 2, ISR Kolkata. And what's your answer?
A2 is greater than A1. Because due to the positive charge on the helium atom, the helium ion, so the probability of the electron being found in the 1s orbital is smaller because of the larger the larger nuclear positive attraction.
That's correct.
So the explanation will be given by a QMC.
So the He plus ion has a smaller size than H atom due to its greater atomic number because the value of the coefficient in the exponential represents something whose probability decreases faster with distance, and that's why He plus being charged, it would have a higher value of alpha.
So we now move on to the third question of round 3, and the question is, find the number of positive integer triplets x, y, and z such that x squared plus y cube is equal to z to the power 5. And your timer starts now. So the buzzer has been pressed by team 2, ISR Kolkata. What's your answer?
Yeah, so 2 cube plus 4 square is equal to 2 to the power 5. Oh, yeah, so like we find one solutions.
So what is the answer finally according to you? Can you, what did they say?
Nothing.
What is the number of positive integer?
Do you have an answer?
That is incorrect.
So the answer was incorrect. And one member of team ISR Kolkata is going to join the audience now. Can you tell the correct answer, Naman?
Yeah, so we can generate an infinite family of solutions using the fact that sum of 2 powers of 2 gives the next power of 2. So you pick x as 2 to the 3n and y as 2 to the 2n. Then since 2 and 3 are both co-prime with 5, we can find a fifth power of 2 that is also of the form 2 to the 6n plus 1. And then you can generate an infinite family of solutions as shown in the screen.
So now we go on to the last question of round 3 of rapid fire B. And the question is, compare a tungsten filament bulb and an LED light, which will have a higher frequency spread in its spectrum. And your timer starts now. ISC Bangalore has pressed the buzzer.
The tungsten filament bulb will have a higher frequency spread, and LED light would emit at a specific wavelength. The diode would emit at a specific wavelength. tungsten filament will have a distribution, a spectrum distribution.
That is correct. Could you explain why? Could you give an explanation?
So the
Means lambda into T should be constant, so if temperature.
Tungsten filament would show a general thermal profile, while an LED would show a specific wavelength corresponding to the band gap.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So as the team said, the bulb in the tungsten filament, it is the thermal radiation, and that will have a spread corresponding to the distribution. And for LED, the wavelength corresponds to the band gap, and only those will be seen.
So with that, we have concluded round 3 of Rapid Fire B. And the scoreboard for round B is that ISC Bangalore in the lead with 6 points, ISR Kolkata with 2 points, IIT Madras with 2 points, and IIT Roorkee with 0 points. And one member of all 4 teams have joined the audience. And now we begin with the last round, round 4 of Rapid Fire B. And the first question of round 4 is, some tree taxa can close their stomata in drought. This has high metabolic costs. Would you expect deciduous or evergreen tree taxa to be stomata closers? Why? I'm resetting the buzzer. Buzzer starts now. So the buzzer has been pressed by team 3, IIT Madras.
The evergreen tree tracks are more likely to be stomata closers because the energy costs of stomata closing would be less compared to the energy loss during the phases when leaves are not available.
Right, that is correct. So essentially, deciduous trees shed their leaves during a part of their flowering cycle, and that's why they don't need to have stomatal closing apparatus.
So we now go on to the second question of Rapid Fire B. And the question is, explain how the addition of a protic acid changes the major product formed in the reactions displayed below. Your timer starts now. Team IIT Madras has pressed the buzzer.
In acidic medium, the oxygen gets protonated and the carbocation is stable on the left-hand side, which has a methyl group. So the carbocation forms there and the cyanide nucleophile attaches to that side. While in basic medium, the other side is sterically more free. So the nucleophile prefers to attack at that position. So the carbon-oxygen bonds break and the OH goes to the other side.
That's incorrect.
So the answer was incorrect, and another member of Team IIT Madras is going to come join the audience. The correct answer.
So the correct answer is that no carbocation forms, but rather a kind of an intermediate in SN1 and SN2 occurs. The partial positive charge is stabilized at the more substituted position.
So we now go on to the third question of round 4 of Rapid Fire B. Let there be an odd prime. How many 2 into 2 matrices with entries in the set 1, 2, and so on till P have an odd determinant module P? Okay, so the buzzer has been pressed by Team 1, ISC Bangalore. Since they took a long time to answer, one of their team member needs to join the audience. That won't help. No, you have to decide quickly. And the correct answer is?
So you consider the matrix A, B, C, D with determinant delta, and you're taking delta as in modulo P. So as AD minus BC equals delta, we can choose A and C independently. May I ask the team in front of me to stay quiet? Yeah. We can choose A and C independently in Q square minus 1 ways and B in Q ways. Now this fixes D since delta needs to be odd, mod P, and thus the total number of ways is Q into Q square minus 1. Now the count is independent of delta, and you have q minus 1 entries when you're taking it mod. And so the final answer is q minus 1 by 2 times q square minus 1.
The discussions can take place afterwards. Before we move on to the last question of Rapid Fire B, let's take a look at the scoreboard. IIC Bangalore at 6 points, IISER Kolkata at 2 points, IIT Madras at 4 points, and IIT Roorkee with 0 points. Here is the last question of Rapid Fire B. Consider a gas made of particles which cannot interact with each other. Will this gas reach thermal equilibrium? The buzzer is being reset now. The buzzer was pressed by Team 1 IISc Bangalore first.
Yes, it will reach thermal equilibrium.
That's incorrect.
Since this question was incorrect, another member of IISc Bangalore will have to go and join the audience. The correct answer is...
So the thing is, at equilibrium, if you have any initial distribution of energies, it will eventually reach to the equilibrium configuration, reach the equilibrium distribution. However, since there are no interactions, if you have certain energy distribution, it will never reach that equilibrium distribution, so it can't reach equilibrium.
With that, the rapid fire round has ended, and that marks the end of all quizzing events of Mimamsa 2022. I thank all of you for joining in, and the final scores after addition is Team IIT Roorkee with 1 point after both the rounds, Team IISER Kolkata with 5 points after both the rounds, Team IISc Bangalore with 9 points, and Team IIT Madras with 11 points. I thank all of you for being present. We'll take a very short break to clear out the stage and then proceed with the valedictory ceremony. Thank you.